Good morning from Tallinn. We are on our way to do a walk around a national park this morning and experience some other things like a waterfall and all sorts of fishing villages, all sorts of various stuff. So looking forward to seeing what this place has to offer.
Jägala Falls. Right now it's only from here to here, but in the big season there'll be waterfall all the way across, which is really neat. We're now on the official bog walk. It's about 2 kilometers long, and bogs are very spiritual, important places for the Estonians. And also during times of war, people would come and hide in the bogs. They would know the way through. So it's kind of a cool area. It's fun to see the peat moss and everything. You can see how dark the water is from the acid of the peat moss. All the lakes are really dark, and that's why people believe that bog monster lives in them. They say that at dusk and dawn you can see little twinkling fairies outside of the bog. It's actually just methane gas being released, and then the shining of the sun, but I like fairies.
Something else to note about this national park is it's actually the first in the Soviet Union. Estonians were able to convince the communists to create the first national park in the Soviet Union. So that's pretty impressive.
Our next stop was a replication of a fishing community. Many of the fishing communities that are in Estonia were ripped down during Soviet times because the Soviets didn't want anyone near the coast because they didn't want anyone to leave. And so this is a replica of that. And it is on the coast of a very beautiful bay, or maybe it's just the fact that it's the beautiful September weather. We just got out of Nicholas's church, and inside is a bunch of Christian relics of different art, and it was enjoyable. It was a little expensive for what it was. They also had the Dance of Death in there, which is a very interesting part of history, in which it shows that no matter what level you are in society, death is still going to find you. So that was fun to finally see that. Hello. So today is kind of an easy day. We made our third attempt to see James Bond movie that came out, and we were finally able to see it. The first time we couldn't see it because we scheduled a tour at that same time. The second time we didn't have our EU COVID passes yet, so we couldn't see it, but they did give us our money back. And this third time we were able to get in, no problem. I'm just going to walk around Old Town, and it's a Wednesday afternoon. It's about 4 o'clock. And there's nobody here. It's kind of eerie but quiet and nice. But I wanted to point out behind me is one of the many merchant homes of this area. So Tallinn was a community based on the Baltics, and it's a lot of merchant homes. And you can always tell the merchant homes by having lots of floors, and at the top there's a little pole sticking out that's like a pulley to bring in the warehouse. So you see them a lot here and at any kind of port town. As I'm walking up this hill to get into Old Town, I realized the reason it's so quiet is that the cruises have all left. So at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, you got big groups of people running around because of cruise traffic. But then they all have to be back on their cruises by now. So that's why everything's kind of closed up. But our guide told us that in the summer, this place used to be just elbow to elbow people. But now, because of the situation in the world, it's a lot more peaceful, but a lot less money. Behind me is St. Mary's, which is no longer a practicing church. They hold mainly concerts and things in here. But one of the funny stories about this is if you go into that door behind me, you're going to be stepping over a grave. And there was a man who was not the best man in the world, a womanizer. And when he was on his deathbed, he was like, "Bury me at the steps of the church. I want to be as close to God as possible." And they did bury him there because he gave him a lot of money, but the thought was that, the negative thought was that he could now peek up under women's dresses as they walked into church. So one of the amusing little stories here in Tallinn. So Old Town, which is on top of the hill, it's gonna have more of your mansions and things like that. And then Lower Town, which is where we're actually staying, has more of the merchants' homes. So just fell in a hole. So now I'm going to head down back to Lower Town. Lower Town also has all the restaurants and the bars and old pharmacies and old cafes and a few vegan options. You can really get anything you need here. Standing with these massive towers behind me, like, I can understand why you feel very safe in a towered city. Like, these walls are so incredibly thick and the towers are so tall. I'd feel safe in the Middle Ages, as long as they let me in. And this is where you can see that some houses were just literally built into the wall and made into a part of their house. This is kind of cool behind me. They've redone this house, but there was a archway and they decided to keep it. So that looks pretty nice. I like that they display things like that. They don't just cover it all up. All right, home sweet home. right across the street in that little bar right there. Best mushroom noodle I've ever had. And then our view actually out the windows isn't that bad of a view. We see St. Olaf. So this Airbnb has its goods and its bads.
We're wrapping up our time in Estonia and wanted to give our final thoughts. It's really noticeable that Estonia is proud of what they've gathered from the random countries that have actually taken over them, which is interesting. They feel that Sweden and Russia have given to Estonia as much as Estonia has brought their own identity to their own country. So I find that really interesting.
They don't like the bad stuff, but they still celebrate the good stuff. They don't just ignore positive things that were brought, even though negative things did also happen. That was very interesting. A lot of countries don't embrace that. Yeah, like the 40 years that Sweden had taken over or so of Estonia, they consider those the good times for having being taken over. They see it as really positive because of Sweden introducing their first university and those kind of details. So it's just really interesting. They also very much embrace the tourism. So they have everything that you find is in Estonian, Russian, and English. Not so much the Asian countries or the Spanish or the French, but English being a semi-common language for tourism is definitely working. As you walk through Tallinn, every other building has a plaque with Estonian, Russian, and English on it explaining what was in that building and why it was significant, which I found was interesting because I like to read. They're definitely trying to encourage people to come here, and people that are in Helsinki will do a day trip Tallinn, and I highly recommend doing that. I recommend more staying in Estonia and seeing the town, seeing the nature, meeting the people, but if you can only do a day, I understand, and you very much should. Yeah, there is definitely easily a day of going around Old City, and there is more than 2 days worth of stuff too by going out to the nature preserves and other smaller towns that might be in the area. There's good day tours from one of the local tour companies that you can do as well, so that we were able to experience. Yeah, we had a lot of fun on our day tour, and we learned about, in Estonians, they feel that they are close to Finnish, so they have kind of a Finnish personality to them. They really like rocks. They have a top 10 boulder lists of all the boulders in Estonia, and it's like a thing to go visit them, which I think is fantastically cool. They even have a national rock, limestone, and once you find that out, as you're walking around, you see limestone everywhere. I mean, there was even a museum that we went to that was carvings of limestone. That was really interesting. Overall, we really enjoyed our time here in Tallinn, and maybe in a peak season again, because we're here during fall, you'd be able to experience a lot more things outdoorsy, maybe get to other locations a lot easier with more tours. Overall, there's just a lot you can do here in Estonia that I think nature lovers as well as history lovers can really enjoy about this country. I think I'd come back here if someone was like, hey, you want to go do a tour in Estonia with me? I'd be like, sure, I will. Yeah, quick 24, 48 hours. I'd do another one of those too, for sure. Yeah, loved it here.